I want to welcome all of you who are with us today. And I want to start out by thanking the Epilepsy Alliance National for hosting this for me and taking care of the technological part of it. I am known to have BCK. I've been diagnosed with that by my sister, who's a Mac Tech, and that is bad computer karma. And computers will act up with me if I get close to them. So, Cassie, I just feel so comfortable with you there sitting and watching after us. I am director of the Nationwide Epilepsy Information Service at Wake Forest School of Medicine, and as well as executive director of the Epilepsy Alliance North Carolina, and one of the founding members of the Epilepsy Alliance National, Epilepsy Alliance America. And in my 50 years of working with those with epilepsy and their families, I early on had a great appreciation and respect for the role of caregivers. And I say caregivers rather than caretakers, because there's not much taking going on that side of the wall. And I now have an even greater appreciation after my husband was in the hospital most of last year fighting for his life. And, until you've been there, you can't fully appreciate just what that role means. And I was delighted to see recently when went into our grand rounds that this was actually a topic at grand rounds at Wake Forest. And we're so big, we don't even know what's going on in our facility. And to find that we have someone here who is very interested and who gave the talk on caregiving and burnout. And I said, I've got to share this with everybody I can because it was such a wonderful talk. And it is a real pleasure to introduce to you today our speaker, Barbara Tibbs, who is Neurology Clinical Research Coordinator and founder of a caregiver group. And we will be working together a lot in the future. So I wanted to share her with everyone I could today. And thank you, Barbara, for being with us. I so appreciate you and your story and how you got into this area. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Pat. I appreciate that. Yes, so as Pat said, I work here in neurology with her, and I am a research coordinator. And for me, my story starts off with, being a caregiver for my ex who had a brain injury. And he and I, we went through a lot together. He couldn't write. He couldn't use the bathroom by himself. So I essentially, at 26, I took on that role and, just paralleled through it and taught him how to become independent again. And that happened over the course of a year. And after that, he decided he wanted to go with his family, which, I was entirely okay with. It was his decision. But regardless, that role changed my life entirely. I was in the restaurant world and I never expected to be in the medical field, but life ends up surprising you and you end up in places that you never expected to be, only to be what you were meant to become. So, here I am now at Wake, and I have founded a caregiver support group in High Point, and we do it virtually and also in person. So feel free to share that with folks. I have the information that I will share with you all. So at this point, I will go ahead and turn it on over to my slides, and we will go from there. Any questions before I get started? No? Okay, great. All right. Perfect. All right. So, can everyone see the screen? Okay, great. So you can't pour from an empty cup. A lot of times when I meet caregivers, they tend to be burned out, obviously. And my takeaway from caregiving was that you can't pour from an empty cup, because you are literally pouring yourself out to someone, investing so much of your time to ensure that they are taken care of, that you often leave yourself on the back burner. So, for me, I felt like it was really important to, keep this mentality of saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. You got to refill yourself. So today we'll be talking about, who is a caregiver, and what does burnout look like, and how does it happen? How can caregivers manage the demands of caregiving, and what does the data tell us? And then also too, where do we go from here? We know this information, so how can we help? Who can we help? And where are the resources found? So we'll kind of be going over that. So first and foremost, who are caregivers? And in my, let's see here, I want to make sure that I close this out, because this right here, there we go. So in my personal opinion, I have defined a caregiver as someone who provides physical and psychological care to another human being. They essentially lay down their life for someone. And ultimately, they're a person, and they could be a parent, they could be a sibling, they can be friends, neighbors, colleagues, peers, and people like you and me. Their roles vary so much, from being a chauffeur, a secretary, an accountant, a pharmacist, being a therapist, and so many more. And those roles come with managing a schedule, obtaining medications, setting up appointments and stuff with physicians, trying to make sure that there's enough money to put food on the table and a roof over the head, and to also make sure that therapies are paid for, and then also too, perhaps people who they're caring for, they can't drive, so essentially they have to be a chauffeur. So I think it's really important to take note that they can be you and me, and they are a person, and essentially the hidden hero. So let's take a look at the empty cup. What is burnout, and when does it occur? Well, it comes in many forms. It comes with, being hungry, or, like excess hunger, or not as much hunger, like a lack of appetite. It looks like being tired or foggy headed, being depressed or easily frustrated, easily triggered. It also comes in the form of isolation that's built up over a period of time. And ultimately, it's a state of physical and emotional and mental exhaustion that happens when you dedicate so much of your time and energy to manage the health and safety of someone else. And a lot of this happens overnight. So it's something, becoming a caregiver happens overnight. And so when you embark on this role, there's a longevity to it, and you often find yourself getting to a gradual state of burnout. And when you look at the big picture of it, when you walk away and you try to go maybe get your hair done, or maybe go spend time with friends or family, you often feel guilt or denial. You get anxious, you get fearful of events happening that would happen if you're not around. And then you often find yourself secluded, because you don't see anyone around you who's going through the same situation. And it's hard for them to relate and understand. I know for me, at 26 years old, no one that I met had any idea the gravity of the situation that I was in. And I never expected anybody to understand it. And although people offered help, that help was very difficult to still find. And so it's been kind of my mission to, reach out to people and actually do something about respite. And so this is how we refill the cup. When we look at managing the needs of the caregiver, we have to embark on this journey with them. We have to be able to help them find support and make sure that they're okay with asking for help. It's hard when you're going through something and you're just tackling it all on your own. And while that is heroic in and of itself, if you don't take the time to take care of you, you essentially cannot take care of somebody else. You're not going to have that mental capacity to give yourself to someone else. So it's imperative that, we not only seek to help the people affected by the various diseases, but also too, that the care for the caregiver is also managed and their needs are met. And caregivers also, I think it's really important to take note of this in particular. They have to realize that self-care is not selfish. It is not selfish of you to go get your hair done or to go spend time with your friends. It's not selfish of you to maybe sleep in a little bit or do something for yourself. That is entirely okay. So, and I think a lot of that guilt that comes with burnout stems from the idea of, oh, well, if I take care of me and I'm not taking care of that person at this moment, then that's wrong. I can't do that. I can't take care of myself because I need to take care of this other person. Let's pump the brakes and realize that you yourself are a person as well, and there are needs that need to be taken care of and managed. Additionally, something to also take into account is controlling the controllables. As a caregiver, it's really hard to let go, and you often want to just manage everything and take care of everything because that's the weight that you carry and that pressure that you carry to get things done and to make sure that things are in place, and that way whomever it is you're taking care of is set up for success. So I think it's really important to be realistic about the expectations you have for yourself and control what you can control and let go of what you can't. There are some situations that are just inevitable. It's okay. Just let it go. And as easy as that sounds, it's not as easy to do. In which case, accepting your emotions, accepting the fact that, hey, I can't do this all myself. I'm at the breaking point of crying, and I have been there. I have cried in the bathroom alone in the shower, or just, in the bathroom in general, just to get a moment of breakdown and then wipe my tears and go back out there and tackle what I need to tackle. But I definitely feel like it's also important to, accept the emotions that you're feeling as valid and real. And, it's okay to process through that. It's okay to feel upset and to feel frustrated, but also to feel like the world is crashing down. But what's not okay is not addressing those. So when you don't address those things, that can all build up. And if you don't set boundaries for yourself and for the time that you have in order to take care of yourself, to fulfill those needs, then you're left feeling burned out. So setting boundaries is also a good way to manage these needs of a caregiver. Things like meditating or journaling have been found to really help with managing stress. I know for me, journaling was something that I did because as I went and spoke about things in my journal, I didn't have the guilt of spewing out what I needed to spew out. I was able to just be vulnerable and open without any judgment, without any guilt or shame for being upset. And that allowed me to accept my emotions. And that allowed me to identify what it is I could control and how I can set boundaries for myself as a caregiver. So I certainly encourage caregivers to find support, ask for help, maintain the mentality that self-care is not selfish. It is entirely okay. So moving on to statistics and identifying what they mean in regards to caregiver burnout and what this data tells us. Well, actions, for example, that are taken to meet the responsibilities of caregiving. As you can see here in this chart, the majority of caregivers, about 50% that were surveyed through the AARP, they went in late, left early, or took time off of their job. And as we all know, that doesn't always mean that you get paid. And then that does cut into financial stability. Others have taken a leave of absence. Others have shifted from a full-time to part-time job, or even reduced the number of hours that they worked. And this takes a toll financially on caregivers, which just adds to that burnout. Nearly a third of family caregivers of older trauma patients experience high caregiver burden up to 3 months after the patients have discharged. And that tells us that there is, although the patient might be okay, although the patient might be stable and maintained and cared for, there's a lacking when it comes to the caregiver. There's a breakdown from, patient to caregiver. And that, for me, in my opinion, needs to shift. 72% of caregivers experience burnout symptoms. And when it comes to the financial burden, care is valued at $600 billion in 2021. And now that we have had inflation, we can only imagine what that looks like here in 2025. Additionally, the amount of money per hour could equate to about $16.59 an hour. And there are 38 million caregivers who are investing 18 hours of unpaid care. Additionally, just to put it into perspective, more than the $433 billion spent by families nationwide in 2021 for all out-of-pocket U.S. care costs. So you can see how much of a burden it is for families when they spend money on out-of-pocket costs in comparison to what it is they're investing. So as you can imagine, the financial burden, if they're taking time off of work, if they're leaving early or having a leave of absence, or even shifting from full-time to part-time, there goes benefits, there goes the care for themselves and everything else that trickles along with that. And that leads us to the health and well-being of caregivers. It does cost more than just their time. When it comes to caregiver burnout, according to this demographical chart here, the health status of caregivers, the prevalence of coronary heart disease and stroke, it looks like, I know some of y'all are from Virginia, 11.5% of folks in Virginia experience heart disease or stroke. And 22% of caregivers age 65 or older report heart disease or stroke, compared to the 10% who are aged 45 to 64 years old. So as you can see, the prevalence of the decline of caregiver health is quite substantial. And I think it's definitely something that we should be considering when it comes to patient care, especially here in hospitals, but also too out in the community. I think, if we know someone who is caregiving, I think it's definitely important for us to not just ask, how are you doing? But also too, how can I help? How can I alleviate some pressure from you? How can I send you some groceries? Can I just run and go get gas for you? Can I step in and help out? Just hanging out with whomever it is you're caregiving, and that way you can go get something done for yourself. And that comes to this conclusion of, where do we go from here? How can we help? And who can we help? Or excuse me, who can help? Well, it's us, you, me, and the community. We can recognize the emotional status of caregivers when it comes to, you know, seeing them on the, at church, or, at the grocery store, or anywhere that you all work. It could be our neighbor. So recognizing that their emotional status is somewhat compromised, I think it's definitely important for us to talk, listen, and understand. It helps us lean into a love that we didn't really know possible when caregivers invest so much of their time. So when someone other than themselves seeks to help, it shows that they matter too. So acknowledging that they have this situation going on and owning the act, hey, I'm going to go grab you some groceries. Okay, own it and solve it and provide it. Help them get through it, because patient care doesn't stop with the patient. It starts with the patient. And when we invest our time in caregivers, it helps us foster an environment for them so they can then continue on with what it is they're doing. Additionally, we can educate caregivers. We can train them. And when we do train them, we need to make sure that that training is enough. Caregiving varies from diagnoses, and it's imperative for us to understand that we need to meet caregivers where they're at. What do they know, and how do we get them to understand the importance of their role and the importance of the training that we invest in them? Utilizing chaplains at hospitals, or if you know someone who does therapy, I definitely feel like it's important to encourage one to have someone to talk to. I know I myself went to a caregiver group at my church, and at the time it was a vulnerable thing, but I'm so glad that I did it, because I was able to find community in a place that I never expected to find, especially when it came to caregiving. And being 26 at the time, it's really hard to do that. So also too, looking at inpatient and outpatient resources. I think it's important if we designate resources at locations in like lobbies or treatment rooms, but in the perspective of the community, I think coffee shops, I think there's some grocery stores that have bulletins, and maybe even getting the word out through your local community clinics and things like that. I think spreading the word that way is really important. You can use social media like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever platform you use. I also think, I know for us, we're hoping to provide links on the Atrium Health app, and then also through email. So I know that for us, we have recently put the link on our website as well, according to some of the folks that I've been speaking with. So having that available and accessible for people is really important, and ensuring departments are equipped with that information so that way they can inform caregivers, who enter their clinics or enter the hospitals. I think that that's really important to just essentially get the word out. And these resources for us can be found in our own backyard here. So like I said, Tiffany Seaford, she's my partner in this caregiver support group that I host every third Wednesday of each month. And the Caregiver Academy that is located at the Davie Medical Center and Lexington Medical Center. Beyond North Carolina and beyond our community here, we also have the NCDHHS. I'm sure that there's others in each state. But looking up those groups, caregiver support groups, or just caregiver groups on those websites, you can certainly find something. Also, the Brain Injury Association of North Carolina. This talk was given to the stroke department. So, I have that tailored there, but they do also have, the Brain Injury Association does have information based on a state by state basis. And they have information about support groups, financial stuff, anything that you can think of. There's also the National Council on Aging. They have a lot of support on there, the AARP as well. And then there is a Forsyth, there's like a community Forsyth triad community booklet that I have. It was too large to put into here, but it has everything that you can think of when it comes to resources. Essentially digging deeper, here's just some examples of some research, and then some of the sources that I use that you are more than welcome to take a look at and browse through. And there we are. Any questions?
Thank you, Barbara. That is, it's just an excellent presentation.
Sure.
I can so remember being in a state of exhaustion, sitting at the hospital when someone walked by who saw me, and they said, "Pat, what are you doing here?" And it was a woman that worked at Belk's. and the way she said it, "Do you have someone sick?" And with just the way she said it, I burst into tears. And I was horrified, And you'll find yourself just being emotional at the weirdest times.
Yeah.
And it's, you have to say, this is normal behavior.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember after being a caregiver, I remember someone coming up to me, and it was like a few months after, and they were like, "Wow, you look so much better than what you did." And I was like, "What did I look like before?"
Yeah,
But it doesn't hit you when you're in it. It doesn't occur to you.
On adrenaline.
Yeah, because you are just living in this state of adrenaline. You're living in this state of survival. And I know for me, I mean, I had lost my job during that time. I didn't know what I was going to do as far as food and shelter for us both, because I was essentially taking care of both of us. And I remember eating off of his hospital tray a little bit because I was like, I need to eat a little something. But we would share, but I would just eat a little bit.
My husband wouldn't eat, period. And so I ate his dinner. He wasn't eating anything. So I had those hospital plates many times.
Yeah. So
I mean, any way to make it funny, I learned. If there's any way you can get to the point where you can laugh at things and make it funny, that to me is one of the most helpful things of all. And I personally found the most irritating thing ever when people would tell me I needed to take care of myself. Now, you need to take care of yourself. I want to smack.
Well, no, duh, I have to take care of myself.
Yeah, sure, I know that. And you just show me how. And
exactly.
A better way is to say, is to think of things you can do for that person. Don't tell them they need to take care of themselves.
Right.
Like in your practical things, like give them a gas card if there's money problems.
Yeah.
Or give them groceries delivered or something like that. That instead of telling them what they should do, they should take care of themselves.
I mean, I had some folks say, "Oh, I'll bring you dinner," and they never got it. And and it's
good
just
intentions.
And it's just following through. That's why I say, acknowledge, solve it, and own it, and just provide it. When you say you're going to do something.
Yeah, instead of saying, "What can I do?" You come up with good things yourself that would be helpful.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it comes down to like the basic necessities,
Mhm.
um and sometimes even just visiting that person. And I know like for me it was really, I mean, when I say, I mean, he was probably like age 5
Mhm.
mentally. Like he just, I mean, it was like a little kid. And it was really, really hard. And, I didn't expect anybody to understand, but I just, I don't have family here. And it was hard for them to even come down here with the lack of PTO that they had because they had recently taken vacation. So they didn't have that. I mean, it does take a toll. So that's why I have said that patient care doesn't stop with the patient, it starts with the patient. It branches out beyond that and to the people, the family that are involved with the situation. I mean, when people do have family available, that doesn't mean that all of that family is available.
No, no.
um,
But it is a wonderful thing when you have that kind of support. And I
mhm,
will have to say that we actually lived with my sister.
mhm,
And I don't know, I honestly don't know how I could have done what I did without her help, but she was there full time all the time. And she would go and stay at the hospital during the day, and I would see him early in the morning and at night. And I
mhm,
had that incredible support. And it just means everything if you've got that kind of support. And I know many of you parents are who are out there with kids with epilepsy don't always have that,
mhm,
and it's hard to find, and people who are really there for you, um
mhm.
and
Yep.
just you know and one of the things with epilepsy is you're having, for especially for those whose seizures are not controlled, you're on alert at all times, just waiting
Mhm.
for the sound, just waiting for that
Yeah.
noise. And I had one a woman whose husband had really bad seizures, and they just retired, looking forward to this wonderful time, after
Yeah.
retirement, and then he developed seizures. And
Mhm.
when early on, when I was talking with her, I said, first of all, I want to know, how are you doing?
Yeah.
She just burst into tears, and she said, you're the first person that has ever asked about that.
Oh my
And she,
gosh.
and it just meant so much to her that someone
Yeah.
cared enough to ask how she was doing. And she was actually doing worse than him because she was the caregiver.
Yeah.
Um, and the person with seizures don't even know they've had a seizure. So, and
Yeah.
wonder why you're all upset.
Exactly. Exactly. And just that little curiosity can go such a long way. And just being genuine about it too,
Yeah.
not just, it's not like one of those conversations that you ask, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's good. And then you just move on. No, like when you
Mhm.
ask a caregiver, oftentimes like there's so much weight and you do end up breaking down. And I'm glad that that was asked because yeah, and it's unfortunate that only one person was able to do that out of how many that she had interacted with. And that just goes to show
Oh,
that,
yeah. Mhm.
that just goes to show that these statistics that we see from the AARP, I mean, it's mind blowing
Yeah.
to know that there are people out there who are caregiving and their health and wellness are
Oh, it's taken
essentially just not even thought
Mhm.
about because
Yeah.
everyone's so concerned about
The
the
patient. Yeah.
patient, and
Yeah.
which is fair, which is entirely
Yeah.
fair. But
So I'd like to hear from some of you, and
yeah.
what are the key issues that you've run into as a caregiver? I'm going to call on you. Marcia, I know that you're a caregiver.
This is a safe place.
Yeah,
Hello, Pat. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
I didn't know your year last year was uh, so stressful. I'm so sorry to hear that. Um, I'm the one that actually wrote the question in there about the resource. Um, So my husband has uncontrolled seizures. He has
Okay.
since age 13. I married him knowing that. We had 3 children. They're adult children now. They're boys, they're men. And
Hmm.
I say that because it may be different with
Oh,
girls,
it is. Oh, no
daughters.
question. Hmm.
But I'm finding we moved down to North Carolina so I could have support.
Mm.
Because now Phil has mobility issues, and so he uses a walker. Again, he has 2 kinds of uncontrolled seizures, and he can fall. Like
Mhm.
Sunday, he fell and he broke his foot. So, it's my thing is that the boys will check in, but I think they really need to understand what this is doing to me 24/7. I do care. I've done it a long time, but now with the mobility, things have changed.
Hmm.
Phil is 71, I am 66. So I was just wondering if there might be just something so it can't be long, you can't do
Yeah,
anything long now. If you have a video or something, they're all
15
technological.
seconds.
But I have 2 of my 3 sons here, and I'm finding that I can't really reach out to them as much. I've already reached out to them for a weekend in April, and my oldest son, because I need to go away for an event, and my son said, well, we'll put it on the calendar. Well, that doesn't help me. You know what I mean? I need to know that you're really going to be available. They
Hmm.
have
Mhm.
children, things come up. So where's my priority?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, and I know, and the reason I mentioned that they grew up with this is because they know what I was able to do as children. I was the sole driver. I did, Phil was able to work. I mean, he was certainly there, but just trying to find maybe some information.
Mhm.
I do not think people realize what caregivers do.
They don't.
If
Right.
you not walked in somebody's shoes, and I feel for you at age 26, um,
Mm.
having to have gone through that. But, people will ask, but, and I've even tried to say, this is what I need, but I don't know if the sons are hearing it. I mean,
Mhm.
for guys, what is it? And, so I'm struggling there because, like you said, we need to have our time,
Mhm.
those kind of things. And so that was, I didn't know if any of this, that you don't have to, if you don't know of one now, maybe you can think of one. But
Yeah,
again, it can't be lengthy because nobody's going to take 10 minutes to read something.
certainly. Certainly. I know that there are some organizations out there that do offer respite care. So I know that there's some here in North Carolina. Where about in North Carolina are you?
I'm in Cary.
Area. Oh, okay. Yeah, there might actually be some out there because I think that's the headquarters of the Brain Injury Association of North Carolina. But I think that they have resources for like respite care out there. Um,
Okay.
but then as far as the whole weekend goes and gathering something for your sons to read and to really like grasp it, I don't have anything on hand, but I am personally certain like I can find something or create something for you. Um, you're like, this is what she needs. Bop, bop, bop.
Well, you think about that in a marriage that,
Yeah.
sometimes men don't hear what you're trying to say. Well, I have grown sons,
Mhm.
and are you hearing what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And the one hiccup, Pat, that has happened is Phil will usually text me at 9 p.m. that he's taken his evening meds. And he did last week, but he didn't take them because memory is an issue. So
Yeah.
I woke
Yeah.
up to him not having had his evening meds. Of course, then I reached out to the neurologist on how to, finagle things. But now that's a new thing is I thought the texting would work because I go to bed around 9. But now we moved it back to 8 o'clock so
Mhm.
that I'm awake, that I can visually see. Now I have to visually see that he took. He has an alarm, to take his medicines, but that I don't know what happened in
There's
that
just a
little bit.
breakdown.
Yeah, he told me he took it, and I get up in the morning because we put it in another special container, even out of the weekly container. So that to me is another, oh my, what else?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one more thing to manage.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Well, we are starting, we have a caregiver support group now for epilepsy in North Carolina.
oh, you do?
Oh, yes, and that's one of our kickoffs is this talk. And
Okay,
you'll be getting notices. It's the third Thursday in each month.
okay,
And next month we'll be sending that out. And since you're on the list, we'll automatically send it to you.
okay.
Yeah, it's a big need. It's a big need.
Well, it's again interesting, and I'm not trying to dominate. When people know Phil's handicapped, they'll ask how he's doing, but rarely do you get much beyond. And prayer is very important for me, but sometimes you need something physically besides I'm praying for you
Yeah, yeah.
in that regard. So
Mhm.
You need action.
yeah, you need action, and I really
Yeah.
don't think people understand.
And I think we have to, it is the hardest thing in the world for me, and I'm sure many of you too, is let people know what we need. And to say, could you, that is really hard for me to say that. Could you
Yeah,
do this or could you do that? But I do know that there were many people, had I said that to anyone, they would have done it. But I don't, I'm not that type. I help everybody else. I'm
Mhm.
not going to ask anybody to help me. And I
Yeah.
think many of you are like that. And we've got to change that to be able to be healthy, to be more clear with your sons what you expect and what you need. Right,
yeah,
and here it is, because they do not read. Men do not read between the lines. I can tell you, most men, very few men have I met that could read between the lines when you sort of give a general idea. Anyone else? I'd like to hear from somebody else too. Because I know many of you sitting there, I know you well, and I know what you go through.
Hello, Pat and Barbara. This is Natalie. I'm with Angels of Epilepsy.
Hey,
And
Natalie, thank you
hello,
for
and
joining us.
Barbara, I'm doing fine. Barbara, thank you so much for that information. I did take a lot of notes, but I'm an epilepsy survivor. I've been living with epilepsy for 43 years now, and I've learned that it is a lot of weight on caregivers. And what I do, even just last week, I gave my sister a gift card and I said, go get a pedicure and a manicure. You've done so much for me. My children, I have two boys, they're 28 and 22. They had to learn how to be a caregiver, like literally at a toddler age. And I also just kind of, give them just that time for themselves. So what I do on a calendar, like if I've had some major episodes, or if my lumbar spinal stenosis, my back issue, or my paralysis, if those things are going on, I have say for instance some friends that are with my church group. I also have just friends that I have, also other family members, so I can at least give my family a break and say, okay, on Tuesday and Thursday, I have my friend Teresa that's coming over. And then on Friday, such and such is going to take me to the doctor's appointment, just so I can kind of alleviate, a lot of stress and pressure on, so many people. But I've been doing okay with my seizure activity. I do have my auras. And again, I also battle with paralysis from time to time, but I greatly appreciate what you've showed, Barbara, because I being a survivor, I have to look on the other part because it's a lot of stress and tension that you guys go through. So like I said, I just recently gave my sister a gift card and said, thank you. Go get a pedicure and a manicure.
Natalie, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think we need, in my groups with patients, we need to remind the patients, the person with epilepsy, that, there's some obligation there to give back. when you have all these people helping you, and it just means so much, an acknowledgement, you know, for all of us of what we're doing and how we're helping people. And that's a great, I'm really glad you brought that up. We need to remind a lot of those with epilepsy how meaningful it is for the caregiver to be acknowledged.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's hard for them.
Thank you so much for that
Yes,
idea.
it is very, very hard. And I've had 2 brain surgeries. Like I've gone through a lot, and it's a lot of pressure on them that I see. And
Mhm.
as I become older, I mean, I'm almost 48 years old, but as I become older, I become wiser just to see their life dealing with me. So that's
Mhm.
why I said I'm going to make sure
Mhm.
that if I'm not well, I'm going to make sure that I have my friends, some people with my church group, and also just other family members that can alleviate pressure from each other dealing with me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I give a lot of talks to doctors, and I always, I end most of my talks with a little talk on the importance of our words. And I tell them how important it is for them to say things to their patients, like especially caregivers, to say, you know, I just want to say you're a wonderful mother. You just do the best job. You provide so much care of this child. And I said, you don't know what those words do for people, to be
Yeah.
acknowledged for giving and caring. And because we're all the caretakers often not even mentioned or thought about, or you know, what they're giving is not acknowledged. And
Mhm.
those words mean so much. So thank you so much, Natalie, for bringing that up. Anybody else, because we're running out of time, but I'd like to hear from anybody else of any thoughts that you have about this. Nicole, what keeps you going? Nicole, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I know
Yes, what
you've spent quite some time being major caregiver.
yes, ma'am. My daughter, for those who don't know, her name is Lyric, and Miss Gibson has been like a lifesaver at the Epilepsy Foundation for my daughter.
Alliance, let me correct that, Alliance, we're Epilepsy Alliance.
Yes,
Ministry
Alliance.
Foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Ministry
thank
Foundation.
you. My daughter was born with autism and epilepsy, and we've been receiving help ever since she was little, and she just turned 18. And I'm grateful for God helping my child and this program that has helped my daughter. She receives medication every month because of this program. And I'm waiting for her to get disability, and they said she may not receive it for another 6 months. So, yeah, God keeps me going, and I'm glad that I met Miss Gibson so many years ago because my daughter is doing better because she gets medication every month. So I'm very grateful.
Nicole. Yeah, you have had quite a time, I know, with your struggles, because
Yes,
your child is pretty much full care.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. She's nonverbal, and I have to do everything. Yes, ma'am.
Debbie, let me hear from you.
Um, well, so it seems like my story is not nearly as my story is a lot more mild than yours. My 26-year-old daughter has juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. She's so taking care of her, when she first developed epilepsy at age 11-ish, after getting over the shock of it, things seemed to progress okay until it came time to kind of launch. So she's just it's the launching and the changes that she's gone through at the high school on into college, and I'm trying to sort out the changes in her personality and who she seems to have become. She seemed to be on this track of, she was just real bright and then just had lots of friends, and then just everything kind of changed. And she's just kind of lost, and she doesn't know what she wants to do and where she's going. And her, she has terrible memory issues and sleep issues, and she's just kind of floating around in the world. And her younger sister, 3 years younger, is just kind of setting the world on fire. And so I think she compares herself to her sister, and trying to get her to believe in herself. And the caregiving stress on me has come really at this point in her life where she's trying to become an adult. And where she's really not becoming an adult. And I worry terribly that she's not going to be able to make it on her own, and she doesn't want to move home and learn to I don't know. I hate to say I'm going to find her under a bridge somewhere, but that's where that's actually a real fear of mine. That
Well, we all have different journeys, and none of them are easy, and none of them are less important,
Yeah.
And it's epilepsy comes with so many different implications. Allison, let's hear from you.
Hi, Pat. Debbie, there's some similarities that I have to things that you've mentioned without trying to sort of like take away from what you're saying. But, and also for all of you who have boys that think that boys that don't get it, I have 3 girls, and girls don't get it either until a certain age. So there's that. Don't feel bad. So I have 3 girls, and my 19-year-old has epilepsy, and she started having issues when she was 12. And so her younger sister was at an age where I was just getting ready to go back to work. And then, obviously I did not. So anyway, I became like a caregiver and have been since that time. During that time, I had another family. My dad developed cancer. So I ended up I was like everybody's default person because I didn't have like a job. So they were like, well, you're not working.
Oh, yeah.
You
Oh,
can
yeah.
take care of it. And then I was like, shit, now I'm doing it for everybody. I didn't know that was going to happen. But so my older one, I just recently had some help with Pat. And she is in college now. And so I understand what you're saying about like, you feel like maybe your child is not as in a desperate situation as some others. But it's basically like everything's fine until it's not. And then when it's not, it's like really not. And this past time, it really wasn't. So I guess 2 things that resonate with me is the idea that just because your family and your situation is not as bad as maybe somebody else's does not take away from the stress,
No,
the
not at all.
strain that can put on you as a caregiver. So I've made myself very isolated, I think, as a result of the fact that my child did not have catastrophic epilepsy, and she did not want anybody to know that she had epilepsy. And so by default, I really didn't reach out. I did not go within my community to get resources and help, because that would have sort of like disclosed her medical diagnosis at a time when she did not want that to happen. So I really did do it by myself, like I think a lot of people did, out of respect for her privacy. And then because I'm always sort of there to sort of be there for whenever she needs it, I also run into the problem of, and because she's 19 and she's just like any other 19-year-old, the world revolves around you when you're 19. I think the world revolves around you until you're about 30, actually. But anyway, I said something one time when she was here for Christmas break about how difficult this had been. And it was actually really setting up shop in my body in different ways. And the first thing she said was, way to make it about you, Mom. You know, and she's a sweet person, but in her mind, it's like, this is just happening to her. And that was selfish of me to even bring it up.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so it is, and I felt really guilty, like, God, why did I, yeah, she's right. This isn't about me, but it is about me. I'm her
It is
mom.
about, very much
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah, like,
Definitely.
this has become my unpaid job, you know, for a
Mhm.
long time. Like if I were to fill out a resume right now, I'd have a really weird skill set that doesn't translate to a lot of things. So I guess I appreciate you, Pat, for your ability to sort of like help have difficult discussions, because you don't want to have to try to catch everybody up on all the nuances of the things that you know to try to like figure it out on your own when you're going through like an issue. And also the idea that helping people own it, that concept you were talking about, like just stop trying to ask them what they need and just do something, like anything. It doesn't have to be the perfect thing. Like
Mhm.
any gesture is a good gesture.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And also the concept of sort of like Natalie, like making sure that people that are leaning on other people for support, just any kind of acknowledgement in a world full of no acknowledgement is like
Mhm.
gold.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Keeps you going.
yeah.
Well, we're running a little over. I want to thank all of you for coming to be with us, and thank you, Barbara, for that wonderful talk. And I look forward to working with you more, and look forward to working with all of you in our group. And you know, I got all kinds of ideas as we talk here, and maybe we, you know, in our support groups of patients, Natalie, that we need to be talking more about them giving back to all those people that support them. A novel idea that many have not thought about. And so I thank you so much, and thank you, Cassie, for helping us through this. You guys are great, and I look forward, I'll be in touch with all of you, and look forward to seeing you with our group in February.